Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Secretary of Shade. Happy Valentine's Day to all of the lovers out there in the cabinet. If nobody loves you, I love you. My name is DDM. If you don't know already, make sure you're following me on social media at Dapper Dan Midas. um, we got a lot to cover today. Some interesting stuff to cover today. Actually, some breaking news as of this broadcast. There has been a shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl celebration parade. So far, one person has died, 14 people are injured, and I'm like, can we just get it together? Like, what is going on in America that we just have so many mass shootings? Now, they did have a press conference at the time of this recording. They had a press conference probably about 30 minutes ago. It's 5:30 here on the East Coast as of this taping. And once again, one person has died. 3 patients are in critical condition, 5 in serious condition, and 1 with non-life-threatening injuries. Hopkins, they also said that 5 additional victims have also sought medical attention for injuries from the event, but it was unclear if they were gunshot wounds or not. Okay? An estimated 1 million people were in the downtown Kansas City area on today, celebrating, the Chiefs' Super Bowl win. This kind of changes how I was going to address the Super Bowl, because I was going to get on here and be like, Travis Kelce ain't shit. He yelling at his coach, fuck the Chiefs, all that good stuff. But now I can't even go in the way that I want to go in, because this is just like, what is going on? And allegedly, it was 2 gunmen. They have 2 people in custody for this. But I'm like, what gives? I was going to come on here, do a little fun banter, talk about, how the 49ers dropped the ball, and I'm mad about that, and, Taylor Swift and all that good shit. And you got to deal with this. It's getting to a point where, like, I don't have children, guys. So, but I imagine if I did have children, I just would not want to take them to things like this, which is sad because you just don't know what's going to happen. So I'm praying for everybody, all of the victims, the, Kansas City area, from what has been reported, the police were right on hand, and they ran right into the line of fire to get this situated. So this is breaking news. So it's not much to really speak on, but that's where we're at. Once again, prayers to Kansas City and everybody who was injured in regards to that horrible and tragic event. Now, to another event. This was going to be the breaking news segment, and then that happened. George Santos. Okay, so we all know George Santos, all right, was the Republican congressman from New York who was disgraced because, he misappropriated campaign funds. He lied, habitual lie, just overall sleazeball. Okay, so, he got expelled from Congress, mother lost his job, and all of that good stuff. So they had to hold a special election to fill that vacancy. Now, in the House of Representatives, because his seat was in the House of Representatives, right? The Republicans have the majority, however, it's a very slim one. So by losing George Santos, they have to fill that seat. They want that seat to be filled, of course, with another Republican. Now, there were 2 people in the election, of course. One Republican and one Democrat. One Thomas Suozzi, I may be butchering his name, I'm sorry, and Mazi Pilip. Okay, so Mazi Pilip is the GOP candidate, well, was the GOP candidate, and Thomas Suozzi was the Democratic candidate. Well, in a twist of fate last night at this special election, the seat got flipped. Niece. So, and this is coming from NPR. Democrat Tom Suozzi, forgive me, has won the New York special election to the U.S. House, according to an AP race call. He will serve out the remainder of the term for former GOP rep George Santos, who was expelled from the House last year. The victory further narrows the already razor-thin majority for Republicans in the House. The race was seen as a test of Democrats' ability to overcome attacks over President Biden's handling of the U.S. border with Mexico and convince voters that Republicans are unable to legislate in Washington, which, no shade, I ain't never seen a group of people with a majority that can't get nothing done. Ain't nothing good enough. They keep bouncing everything back. Whatever. Okay. Immigration politics dominated the contest in a congressional district that sits thousands of miles from the U.S. border with Mexico. The race was between Suozzi, who served 3 terms in the House, and Nassau County Republican legislator Mazi Pilip. Suozzi celebrated his victory Tuesday night, telling reporters in Woodbury, New York, that his campaign centered on immigration and the economy and a message of binding divisions between the parties. Okay? Now, I find this interesting. And here's why I find this interesting. It could be several things. And this is just my theory. This isn't the, pundits' theories on the news and, all of that. This is just me. I really thought that maybe because of it's a more conservative county in New York, in Nassau County, I thought that they would go ahead and vote the Republican candidate in. But I think, and honestly, guys, I am very happy about this. And not happy because a Democrat won, even though, I am a registered Democrat, but happy that people held that party and that person accountable, because it took them a while to even expel George Santos. They didn't want to do that. Be clear. They did it. It happened, but they didn't want to do that. Okay? And I'm glad that the citizens of New York, of Nassau County, said, you know what? We're going to hold you accountable. Because the last candidate that y'all supported and that y'all took forever to expel, that refused to resign, was in your party. He lied to us. He misappropriated our campaign funds. And y'all paid it. And not only that, we as voters were embarrassed. Even though it's not their fault. Be clear. I want to be clear. It's not the voters' fault that, they got bamboozled. But as people, you naturally want to believe that you have a good pulse on what's going on and that you can read a person. So he embarrassed a lot of people by being dishonest in how he was doing things. So it's nice to see a group of people held accountable. Okay? For this race, a lot of, news channels, pundits, political talking heads were all saying, oh, this race is a test for the Democratic Party and what's going to happen and how's this going to work, okay? So, let's check NPR. NPR says both parties were closely watching the race as a chance to test their message ahead of the upcoming election in November. The district has swung significantly in recent elections. President Biden won there in 2020, but the GOP victory in the 2022 contest in the district along with others in the New York suburbs, helped them flip control of the House in 2022. Criticism of Democrats' handling of crime drove independents back to GOP candidates. Now, what's interesting to hear about that paragraph, let's not dissect that for a moment. You know what I love about this? This says that the people in this county vote based on the issues and who they truly believe can get the job done. Not on, I'm a Republican, never, Trump, or, Trump till I die, make America great again. It sounds like these people just like to get it right. And I can respect that. Aside from them being bamboozled and falling for the okie doke from George Santos, it sounds like these people just want to get it right. So they're voting based on who they really believe is best for the job, based on what the track record says, at least for the past 4 years, okay? Which is refreshing to see. So that's a good thing. Candidates and outside groups spent over $20 million in ads and get out the vote operations on this election. Now, another thing that I want to point out too about this particular election that they're leaving out is that they had low voter turnout. So and they had low voter turnout, be clear, it was a whole snowstorm. So it's not like these people just didn't want to come. It's giving snowstorm. It's giving nor'easter. It's giving, fa la 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 la. Okay? So I'm not sure who that helped and who that hurt. Now, in the numbers wise, you know what I'm saying? It could be, of course, the Democrats came out on top, but historically, Republicans are very much in-person voters. They don't vote, via mail or early voting and things like that. Historically, statistically, Republicans they like to vote in person. So I don't know if the snowstorm hindered, the Republican, voters from coming out, or if maybe it was just that they were over it, or I don't know. But the turnout wasn't given what it typically would give. So, but it was a very decisive win. This was not a slim margin win. So, the Democratic candidate Suozzi won 53.9% of the vote with 91,338 votes as of the time of this morning. And Mazi Pilip, the GOP candidate, got 46.1% of the vote with 78,229 votes. So it was a decisive victory. It wasn't, a close race. It wasn't one of those situations where it was like, oh, they should have a runoff, or is this a runoff district? No, she lost. But it's good on, Nassau County, good on the state of New York to get it right. And I like seeing that voter history as to how they vote. So the Republicans just took a major L last night. Let's see what happens moving forward. Sound off in the comments and tell me what you think. Now, before we get to that, one more thing. So, that the Speaker of the House, who was ousted, and I'm having Kevin McCarthy. I had a quick brain fart. He was ousted. Well, Kevin McCarthy, in light of everything that's going on, and he wasn't speaking directly to the seat being flipped, but he did kind of come for Matt Gaetz, and a few other senators that, were responsible for, Congress people who were responsible for getting him ousted. And basically what he basically had some choice words for them. And he's actively, once again, for those of you who don't know, Kevin McCarthy is a huge fundraiser. Like, if you need money to run your campaign, if you need the coins to get posters, if you need the coins for commercials, Kevin McCarthy is your guy. Well, don't piss off the bank, okay? Because now the bank's coming for you. And with Congress having with the Republicans rather having an even slimmer lead, or majority rather, in the House, it's going to be interesting to see how Kevin McCarthy adds fuel to the fire with that. So that's just one Easter egg I wanted to kind of put in your basket to think about as we watch this year's elections. Okay, now, finally moving on to a more international situation over in Ukraine. Now, you know Ukraine needs our funding. We talked about the funding bill that was, presented and everything, what was included in it, all that good stuff. Now, Ukraine is shaking things up a little bit. They're shaking up their military leadership and shaking up who's going to be running that. And it's been met with some scrutiny. It's been met with some questions. But it's been done. So, Ukraine's, and this is coming from Vox, Ukraine's military underwent a major leadership shakeup this week, a decision that President Volodymyr Zelensky framed as a reset for the country's stalled war effort. Come on, stalled. On Thursday, Zelensky announced that he'd be replacing General Valery Zaluzny as the military's leader after the two clashed over whether to back a new conscription push, as well as how to frame the war's lack of progress to the public. Okay? In his stead, Zelensky has named Colonel General Alexander Syrskyi, the head of the military's ground forces, as the country's new commander-in-chief. Syrskyi is known for being a seasoned military leader who's also been criticized for a willingness to put his troops at risk. So much so that some soldiers colloquially refer to him as the butcher. Let's pause here for a second. So, Zelensky is like basically switching up the script because the former leader, general, what have you, basically said, wait a minute, we need to think about this a little bit differently. Also, too, from what I'm reading here, from my understanding, there were some issues in the PR. Because let's say, face it, when you're saying how to frame the war's lack of progress, that's basically saying PR. Okay? How do we spin this for the public? How do we lie to the public? How do we make the public feel good that ain't shit happening? That's basically what this is saying. That's what it's giving to me. So because they couldn't agree, he was like, all right, boom, back, Chappelle, you don't have to agree. You can exit stage left, and I'm going to bring, my new guy over here. He's going to go ahead and get it done. Okay? Now, this change comes at a crucial time for Ukraine's war with Russia, which is nearly in its third year. Wow. That was fast. I feel like this just happened, but okay. While Ukraine had a string of early successes, including surprising the world by holding off an onslaught against Kiev and retaking some territory in the summer of that year, its progress has slowed due to Russia's entrenchment, dwindling funds, and limited manpower and weaponry. Currently, Ukraine is still waiting on the U.S. Congress to approve another $60 billion in military aid, a critical infusion of funding, and conservatives have balked at doing so. All those issues mean replacing the country's top general is unlikely to result in significant changes to Ukraine's existing trajectory, and there may be elements of Syrskyi's demonstrated style so far that worsen soldiers' morale. Zelensky described the decision to switch commanders-in-chief at this point as fueled in part by the need for effective changes in the basis of our defense, so Ukraine can be successful moving forward. Beyond Zelensky's strategic disagreements with Zelensky, some experts believe the president saw the general, who was quite popular among Ukrainians, as a political threat. Child. Look, it's always more. Objects in mirror are closer than they appear. You know when you're driving and you look in the rearview mirror or in the little side mirror on your door, and it say that it's always something. It's always something. So, we're framing it as, or it's being framed as, we didn't see the same vision. We didn't see the same, have the same ideals as far as how to address the public. When really it's given, girl, the people is living for him, and I need to stay president and have my victory and have my moment, so you gotta go. And you gotta go at the expense of soldiers' morale and possibly them getting blown to bits because this new general does not mind sacrificing bodies. They need the money, they get it, but guys, the more I do this, we've been doing this for a while now. We've been doing this for some years now. And the more I do this, the longer I do this, I have learned not to cheer for anybody, just to speak on what I observe. Because when you cheer for people, you will get let down, especially these politicians. If they're a politician, they're going to let you down every time. And it's just so crazy to hear and reading this and seeing this. And I just don't, I don't know how that feels. Okay? I don't know how that feels. Okay? But we're going to continue to watch. We're going to continue to monitor. But power is a dangerous drug. And, I don't know how many of you have watched Lord of the Rings, but it gets the best of them, honey. It gets the best of them. But moving on, we got one more story before we get to our, I'm going to try to get to our positive story of the day, because Valentine's Day. But it was a shooting at Joel Osteen's church. And I'm gagging. And this one is sad. This one is really sad. So, for those of you who don't know, Joel Osteen is like this really, really popular, like, mega church pastor. Like, he got billboards. He known internationally. He got hella money. Large congregation. It's a whole thing. He's like one of these mega churches, like on the Righteous Gemstones. Well, anyway, a lady came in with her child in a long trench coat and started shooting in the church with her child. I'm gagged. They took her ass out though. But in the process, her child, 7 years old, got shot in the head. Because when she came in shooting, there were two plainclothes police officers who do security for the church. So they lit her ass up. But in the they're not saying who shot the child, but let's put it together. They lit her ass up, and the poor child got shot in the head. Now, from what's being reported, the child is still living. The shooter was identified as 30, and this is coming from the Associated Press. The shooter was identified as 36-year-old Janice Yvonne Moreno. Police say Moreno was shot and killed by two off-duty officers working security at the church, one of the largest mega churches in the U.S. Two other people were shot and wounded, including the shooter's young son. Okay? It happened around 2 p.m. Sunday, Houston time. just before people were getting ready to watch the Super Bowl. Once again, she entered wearing a trench coat and a backpack, armed with a long rifle. Okay. Before being shot and killed, the suspect told officers that she had a bomb and were carrying a yellow in color rope and substances consistent with the manufacture of an explosive device, which appeared to be a detonation cord, according to the search warrant affidavit. Authorities said that as of Monday, no explosives or hazardous material were found at the scene. Okay. The other victim was a man in his 50s. Okay. Now, according to reports, the shooter, Miss Moreno, had a history of mental illness, including being placed under emergency detention in 2016, but provided no other details. Houston Police Commander Chris Hassick said Moreno sometimes used both male and female aliases, but he said investigators determined through interviews and past police reports that Moreno identified as female. Authorities said investigators were looking into a dispute involving Moreno and the family of Moreno's ex-husband. Police said Moreno legally purchased in December, the AR-15 style rifle that was, them AR-15s, I'm going to just start naming them the crowd killers. The AR-15 is the crowd killer because that is just always the gun. Y'all notice that every time we talk about these shooters, it's always an AR-15. That's the crowd killer. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in this country, but also too, this puts another spotlight on mental health because what I'm noticing is that the country, and it's been like this for a while, but they just do not do mental health services. And I don't know I think it may be partially too because we don't have enough people trained to handle the level of mental health crises that we have right now, especially post the pandemic. You know, you've seen therapy attendance skyrocket. A lot of people are suffering with anxiety. I myself deal with anxiety. It's just a lot going on, and I just don't think there's enough people or staffing or professionals to really meet the demand. I really think that that's what it is. And I think that, unfortunately, we're going to continue to see these mass shootings. I mean, when you think about it, we are already, to a certain degree, kind of used to mass shootings. Remember, let's say even 5-6 years ago, a mass shooting would happen, that would take over the news cycle the whole week. We'll be talking about that shooting. Girl, you know what happened? It was a mess. You know, they would have ran that in the hole. Okay? Fast forward now, these mass shootings happen, and we like, all right, you get about a day or two of coverage out of it. As the general public, we kind of just ignore it. I'm not going to say ignore it, but it's just not, you know, it's not something that we think about often, and it's sad to hear. Okay? It's sad to hear, but hopefully we'll make it through. And the government or lawmakers will wake up at some point and say enough is enough, but you just got to keep voting and, you know, pray for the best. Sound off in the comments and speak your piece. Now, before we get out of here, you know, we always end with a positive news story. I make that a point now. And since it is Valentine's Day, February the 14th, I want to share this story. So, A love story that transcends, and this is from ABC 7 in California. A love story that transcends uh, death. Bay Area man sends lifetime of flowers to his forever Valentine. There's a sweet love story that continues to bloom every Valentine's Day. It's the story of an East Bay couple married for almost 50 years, and now, even after one person died, the flowers keep coming. This is the story of John and Diana. We were married 47 years, but we actually met in high school when we were 16 years old, said 77-year-old Diana Maver. They married and had 3 children and lived happily ever after, including decades spent in Danville until John Maver passed away in October 2017. But their love story continued 4 months later on Valentine's Day 2018. Daughter Mary Lee Hurd shares, through whatever magic works in his world, it's set up so that every year a bouquet of flowers shows up on her doorstep from my dad. When these flowers arrive, you should see the smile that comes on her face. It's just incredible. The joy that washes over her. She knows he's there with her. Roses and lilies, white lilies, they represented our love for each other, Diana said. Hurd added, the same bouquet, the same card arrives. He set that up so it would happen every year, I'm assuming, for the rest of her life. So 77-year-old Diane is again looking forward to getting something from her forever Valentine in 2024. This is some movie shit. First off, I hope we all, if we don't already, find in our lifetime somebody that loves us like that and loves us that deeply. It is I just thought this story was very, very, very sweet, very endearing. I'm sure a little tear. But I think that is absolutely beautiful, and we need more of this in the world. More love, more positivity, more celebrating each other. But that is our show for this week. I will be traveling to Philadelphia for 2 weeks. I'm going to be doing some work there on my album. I'm going to be working with some great, great people and having some meetings. So we'll still report. It may be on location, sis. So we may not have the background. We may not have the set because he's on location. But I'm going to check in with y'all. But with that being said, make sure you subscribe, hit the link for notifications, share the video, like, comment, follow. And I will see you all next week. Have a great, great Valentine's Day. If nobody loves you, I love you. You be blessed. Peace and love.